Hey, I've been slowly working on the next Songs for Humanity video again, and this video is not so much a tutorial because I decided to do more like a sped up overview of the process while also talking about some of the things I'm doing. So let's first check out the recent additions and then go through the process of making them. So as you saw in the beginning, the idea was to have these cartoony looking wind streaks in the rainy ocean that would come and sort of lift the boat above the clouds basically. And I first modeled this long curve that works sort of as a base for the shorter randomized streaks that I will then make with animation nodes. I'm basically using a loop with many iterations to take random segments of the long curve and then randomizing the location of the segments, and also I'm adding some noise to the segments to make it more curly looking. And once I was happy with the look, I added an extrusion to make the curves visible, and I also added an animatable trimming setup to get that windy look. And I also decided to get a tiny bit more fancy by adding this smooth tapering to the ends of the curves, and I came up with this interesting way of making that with the curve interpolation node so that I could visually control the taper. The whole wind animation is a bit rough around the edges because all of the segments are animated with just one value in sync, but it's actually by design because I wanted to be able to just turn off animation node's execution altogether after modeling the curves with it and animate this whole wind contraption with just one trim start and trim end value from Blender's own curve data. It's a bit less finicky that way. For some reason I just like to use stock Blender whenever I can. And yeah, the wind curves are pretty much ready to go, and I just added a transparent material to them and then animated the bevel start and end values to my liking. And then I started working on the boat rising up from the water with the wind. And that's just a case of some simple keyframing, nothing too complicated there. I also managed to compose the rest of the piano part for the entire Songs for Humanity piece in the background. There's still some work to do with the other instruments, but it's looking good. And then came the time to make the islands. And this turned out really interesting because I was originally going to just sculpt them by hand, but then I decided to experiment a little bit with the Sorcar add-on. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's an add-on for procedural node-based modeling. A bit like animation nodes, but it's a bit of a different approach. You are dealing less with animation and more with modeling operators, selections, modifiers, etc. Basically, you are modeling things parametrically, step by step, and you can at any time go back into the previous values and change them, and they reflect on the end result. And it's a much more non-destructive way of modeling things in Blender. It's pretty cool stuff, and I've been wanting to test it out for something, and I thought these simple floating islands could be an interesting test to easily generate lots of different unique islands that still look somewhat similar. So this is the whole node setup. It looks really complicated at first, but it's really just doing things step by step. And I'll quickly go through each step here so you can get an idea of how this works. So we start by creating an icosphere and then creating another icosphere. And then we move that second icosphere a little bit by random amount. And then we scale it down a little bit. Then we select everything and randomize the vertices a little bit with a random seed value. And then we subdivide and smooth it out a little bit. And then we select only the top faces and scale them down along the z-axis to make the top flatter. And then we select the bottom faces and enable proportional editing and scale down a little bit. And then select even lower and scale down again to get sort of a taper towards the bottom of the island. And then we selected all of the bottom faces again, and then we have this loop that basically randomizes the bottom vertices along the z-axis. And it looks a bit messy and jagged right now, so we add a subdivision modifier and a displacement modifier to add a little bit of noise to the surface. And then we add a decimate modifier And then finally we select the upward pointing faces and we assign a vertex group for the selected vertices, because I thought I would use a particle hair system to add the trees. I ended up doing it manually in the end though. But yeah, now the island is ready, and the best thing is with this random seed value here at the start, I can very easily generate endless amounts of random variations of this procedure. So yeah, here are a few islands that I thought looked nice, and I was originally going to use those low poly models as they were, but then I decided to go for a smooth shaded look and touch up the islands a little bit to get crisper edges. And that's just because I always tend to go with the low poly look. It's an easy route for me, they look good. But I wanted to try something different for a change and try out a new style and play around with the materials a little bit, try out some new things. And when I had all the islands ready, it was time to start working on the material for them. At first I was struggling a little bit with the material, because as I said, this is a new type of style for me. I usually go either low poly or straight up photorealistic. But anyways, here I am taking the dirty vertex colors to use as a mask in various places. At first I was using it to add some contrast to the sharper edges, so that it looks a bit more weathered. And then I took the normal pass and separated the z-axis off of that normal pass. And using that as a mix factor, I added some green grassy color to the top of the islands. And yeah, then I kind of just started fiddling around with the material and forgot to record most of it. But here's the end result. Again, looks very complicated at a glance, but mostly there's just a couple Voronoi textures and a masquerade texture and stuff happening with the vertex color map. But I will show you one cool trick I came up with during making this material. I'll cut these for a moment so we can see things more clearly. And I'll put this here. So here we have a Voronoi texture, and I'm using a color ramp to add lots of contrast, so I get these random black lines going around the whole island. And it's using the object texture coordinates straight to here. And this is a trick I use very often. I'll take another Voronoi texture, and it's a smaller one, there's more detail, and I'm just adding this mix color node to be able to control the contrast. And if I take this vector mapping output that I will be using for the Voronoi texture and add to that vector the color output from the smaller Voronoi texture and use that as the vector mapping node for this Voronoi texture, I get this result. And this is what it looks like with the color ramp. So if I now adjust this contrast, you can see that with this vector add node here, we can sort of influence the vectors of the bigger Voronoi texture with this smaller Voronoi texture. So that's a trick I've been using for a long time, but then I came up with the idea of taking this dirty vertex color map and adding some contrast to it, and again adding an adjustment node here, and using this map to further shape the vector mapping of the Voronoi textures according to the curvature of the model. So if I plug this, for example, to the scale input of this vector mapping node here, you can see that it actually somewhat conforms to the sharp edges of the island model. It's a bit hard to see here, but let me show you the final material again. So this is what it looks like in the end. And if I zoom in here and adjust this contrast slider here, you can see that this is what it was like in the beginning. And when I start to bring this down, you can see that the Voronoi textures kind of align to these sharper edges of the model, which is very cool because it results in this much more natural looking texture on this island. You could even take it a lot further like this, but I like the way how it looks with this value. And again, compared to the original one where the texture is just sort of slapped onto the island without any regard to the form of the island. And if we bring this back, you can see it's sort of conforming to the sharper edges. It's a subtle effect, but I think it adds some well-needed character to the material. Whoops, actually I forgot to include this other stuff that I cut off a while ago. So like this. So this is just another masquerade texture. Just a little addition to the tops here and also to the sides here. You can see this masquerade texture adds a little bit of detail. Just a minor addition. So now that the material for the islands was ready, I started working on the trees for the islands. I wanted fir trees for the islands, so I modeled this one simple low poly branch, and then I used an array modifier with an object offset to create this array of branches. Just move the controller object up, rotate along the z-axis, and then scale down a bit. And that makes for a nice base mesh that I can then remesh and start tweaking further. And again, originally I was going to use this decimated low poly model, but then I decided to remesh it again and sculpt some details on it and try to get a different look that I would usually go for. And this technique of enabling smooth shading and then pinching in these sharper creases is definitely a good way to make this smoother look feel more tight and clean. Even though this tree model was sculpted quite hastily, I really just wanted to get it done quickly. But yeah, that style definitely was sort of a new discovery for me. And when I had the tree models ready, it was just a case of adding a few of them to each island and randomizing everything a bit so that it felt natural. And then the islands were ready to put in the actual scene. So I just placed them in there and made the boat fly through them. And that was the end result you saw in the beginning. So that was it. Now I've just gotta continue working on that animation. There's still a lot to do. The animation isn't even halfway through the song yet. But let me know what you thought about this overview format. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll definitely make more of them because it allows me to make more progress on the Songs for Humanity stuff compared to if I work really hard on a single specific tutorial that doesn't really contribute anything to the Songs for Humanity project. But anyways, that rounds up the Blender stuff for this video. I've been listening to the autobiography of Carl Jung recently. It's very interesting getting to know about his views, because for some time I felt like he's a philosophical / psychological figure I should get to know. It might be a bit backwards for me to start my philosophy psychology reading with Jung when I haven't properly read up on the classics like Plato, Aristotle, Locke, Kant, etc. There's just so much. But I decided to start with Jung, out of all of them. His weird mysticism is very interesting and refreshing to me. The idea of the common unconscious and his opinion that one should base their mental foundations on a complete integration of one's line of history. Nowadays it's so common to be very eager to let go of anything in the past and look only to the future and go only that way. It makes an interesting counterpoint. His stories about all these vivid visions and dreams and communications with these ancient unconscious origins paint a very unique image of the deepest parts of being a human. And however unprovable and unscientific these more mystical things are, he was clearly a man with extraordinary sensitivity to the phenomena of the human psyche. And that's something I often find myself envious about. And it's not just these famous figures, it's also many people I know personally. My inner world seems quite bland in comparison, and it makes me feel like I just haven't managed to tap into some deeper parts of myself. But then again, I know from Eckhart Tolle that it's usually the work of the logical mind to assume that you can somehow advance to some new heights by a lot of concentrated effort. I think it's essentially me falling into the trap of thinking that in a potential future there's something I should obtain that would enable me some new level of satisfaction or happiness about my mental state, when really the only right answer is to stop looking for it and learn to be content with my current state and the current moment. Because I believe that that sort of sensitivity and mental vibrance can only be cultivated right now in the present moment, and it doesn't work out if there's that trace of mental resistance when I'm not completely content with what exists right now. I like to believe that that contentedness would make it possible for these things to naturally flow into me or emerge from me. I'm just not very good at it yet. I suspect that the best way to get there is to just meditate more, practice good awareness of even slightly negative thoughts or emotions about my mental state, because that continuous awareness shines a light to the negativity and hopefully slowly dissolves it. I mean, I have things so well in my life. I'm so lucky and I have so many things to be forever grateful about. It's crazy how the mind finds things to be not happy about. Like, oh, you don't have these amazing, enlightening mental experiences that these other people are having. Oh, that's a pity. That's a pity that you don't have those mental experiences. It's almost comical when I think about it that way, but it still manages to creep on me sometimes. But yeah, this is obviously a very small thing. It's not like it's ever really been a problem for me. It's more like a very subtle negativity that I've noticed and I found interesting to think about and talk about. And I hope you also got something to think about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.